Heather McDonald has got the juiciest scoop. When you're on the road, when you're on the go, Juicy Scoop is the show to know. She talks Hollywood tales, her real life mistress, segment serial data, and serial sister. You'll be addicted and addicted fast to the #1 tabloid real life podcast. Listen in, listen up. Whoop, whoop. Heather McDonald, Juicy Scoop.
Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. We'll have a real fun, juicy one to get your mind off of everything that's going on in the world. So let's get into the stuff that doesn't really matter. First of all, I'm selling my merch. You guys have a Juicy Scoop tank on today, and everything is at heathermcdonald.net. And I got my Juicy Scoop slides. If you go to my reels on Instagram, I did an unboxing, which was really fun. It was my first collab with Chanel. No, just kidding. They're much less expensive and they're Juicy Scoop and they're comfortable and fun. Anyway, everything is there. That's also where you go to join my Patreon. And let's get into all the crazy fun stuff that's been happening. First of all, I was lucky enough to go to the USC game on Saturday with Peter. Some friends of ours invited us. We went to a fun tailgate and it was Parents Weekend. They played U of A. It was a very exciting game. And I was in great seats with a friend of mine that I knew from college, and he has got a beautiful booth. And so we were there, not a booth, but like a box. It's anyway, very nice. And so I see this today on page 6 that Will Ferrell was also there, and they, made page 6, and he was DJing his son's fraternity party, which I guess, his son did get in, mine did not. We see where Will Ferrell is. We see where Heather McDonald is when Drake is at ASU, but whatever, everyone is fine. And I was just doing a little selfie of myself, and then this happened, and I got so excited.
A Trojan Family Weekend Special. Actor, producer, and USC alumnus O'Shea Dixon Jr.
I thought it was Will Ferrell.
I thought it was Heather McDonald.
Trojan fan! It's about that.
Well, so there you go. So maybe one day I'll give the commencement speech like Will. Maybe one day I'll be announced at the school. In the meantime, we had a really fun time. So it was a very nice, good, fun time for us. Okay, I want to do a little follow-up on the Victoria Beckham, David Beckham situation with their Netflix show, which a lot of people are really enjoying. And the fact that she brought up that there was these tabloids rumors about this assistant that David had. And that was a really hard time in their marriage, but they don't ever really say it was anything more than rumors. We don't know. And Sarah and I talked about maybe they don't want to confirm it or have it come up. Well, of course, in this day and age of internet world, they found the girl. She is 46. She is a yoga instructor, or owns her own yoga place. And people found her. I mean, most people have an Instagram. Most people, if they have any kind of business, make it public. And she was getting a bunch of hate and comments. And she commented thank you for the support. I'm good, I'm fine. And that is exactly what I thought. Of course it's going to come up. Of course people are going to take it upon themselves to either reach out to her in a really negative way or write something under her yoga pose or whatever. But also what was weird is their daughter-in-law, Nicola, who's married to Brooklyn. And Nicola and Victoria has supposedly had some issues in their mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship. And she posted, and she's a really wealthy, she comes from a lot of money too. And they're a young couple. They got married early 20s and then been married a couple times. So she posted a slideshow on her Instagram and congratulating her father-in-law for this documentary on Netflix. But people thought the posting was strange. So the photo she chooses to do is her in this red leather dress and her husband, his son, grabbing her, his hand is on her ass cheek under the skirt. He kind of looks a little drunk. That's the first slideshow. Then there's another one of her just being sexy and the husband in the back. And not till the fourth slide do we see David Beckham on a red carpet. So, but she's like, congrats, daddy-in-law. Very weird. Also, Kanye West. So he's got this wife. Now I'm hearing that they are for sure married, Bianca. He makes her wear all these weird clothes. I've talked about it. I've worried about her family. It's also been come out now that she is the daughter of this like notorious crime boss, allegedly from Australia. So that's interesting. But now the stories are coming out that he instructs his wife, Bianca, Kanye, to never speak and has given her a list of rules to live by, what she has to eat, what she wears, and that some believe that Kanye is trying to mold Bianca into a radicalized version of his ex-wife, Kim Kardashian. But here's the thing. Like I said, I really hope this isn't a girl that is completely isolated from her family and in some weird cult-like marriage, you know? I really hope that she really is this crime boss daughter type and is really smart and is like, I'm wifey, okay? I'm the wife and I have power of attorney, and when anything happens with Kanye, I'll be able to be the one that'll be his next of kin, or not that we want that to happen, but if she needs to be like power of attorney and do anything with him acting strange, maybe she's just going along with it. Here's a theory, going along with it and just playing like the docile, dumb wife who is in this like strange partnership and all her friends are worried. And she's like, just you don't worry. I'm going to get a lot more than my own pantyhose line that I can pull up to my nipples. I'm going to get a lot more than that. And I know exactly what I'm doing because I learned from the best, my dad. I don't know. I hope it's that. Not that she wants to hurt anybody, but I hope it's not that she's trapped in and being completely brainwashed, wearing these awful outfits. Also, on Real Housewives of Potomac, there is this girl, Mia. She was really honest about the fact that she married this older guy. She was a stripper. And she says in the trailer, maybe I married him for money. Well, now they're getting divorced. And his name's Gordon. He's in his early 70s, has come out and done an interview just spilling the juicy scoop. And he said, I told her at a certain point in her marriage, they've been together like 11 years and they have 2 kids. He said, at a certain point, I'm not going to be able to like satisfy you sexually anymore. And if you want to go sleep with somebody else, that's fine. Don't bring them home. Don't bring them around our kids. Be discreet about it. Don't embarrass me. He then found out that while they were kind of living this situation, that he saw her phone and there were sexy texts on it. And she's talking to him and he feels like the kids are somewhat, I don't know, being hurt by it. And so they are getting divorced. And he's like, I just want to co-parent with her, but she has no use for me anymore because I don't have access to all my funds. He owned all these joint chiropractic places, like this franchise for chiropractors, with his brother. And something happened where this partnership ended. So he does not have the money that he had, where she had just unlimited funds to spend. And we all know housewives don't really make that much money. And he believes this new guy that she's texting with and having an affair with has a lot of money. So it's all out on the table, but it should make for a good season when that comes out. Meanwhile, Mauricio. So he's on Dancing with the Stars. And I thought, oh my God, is he going to end up dating his instructor? Because that always happens. Well, he went out to dinner with his parents with this woman who is not, her name's Leslie Bega. And she's very pretty. And she looks to be, I don't know, you never can tell how old people are, but she looks like she's like maybe like 40. People dove into her Instagram and she can do the splits just like Kyle. And it is kind of interesting that supposedly Kyle was asked to do Dancing with the Stars and turned it down. They supposedly wanted her and Morgan and Mauricio, and she turned it down and was like, you do it, Mauricio. But I mean, she is the girl that can do the splits. Well, so can this girl. And this girl is not only an actress who can do the splits, but she's also a realtor and she works at his agency. So most likely she will be featured on the new season of Buying Beverly Hills, which is his reality show about his real estate firm with his daughters and these other people working there. So they go out to dinner and his mother posts a couple times thanking her for driving her home and having such a lovely evening. Some people feel like that's insensitive since, you know, Mauricio has been married to Kyle for like 27 years. But it doesn't seem like I don't even know. I hope that Mauricio and Kyle are like in cahoots and planning this so that Heather McDonald, Juicy Scoop, talks about them. Because then Kyle over the weekend goes and picks up Morgan Wade. I'm going to do it. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I'm going to make you love me. I'm going to make you love me. I didn't think picking me up from LAX on a Friday would make anybody love me, but she did it. She came all the way from Beverly Hills. Never heard of Beverly Hills. Never knew what a reality show was. But here, this pretty lady Kyle came to pick me up. So, of course, the paparazzi sees the photos. And let's face it, you guys, if you don't want to be seen picking somebody up at the airport because you don't want the publicity, it's very easy to have your assistant go, maybe even have somebody else drive and you sit in the back seat and greet them in a big blackened window SUV. No. So they have all the photos of her picking her up. And then the next day they're hanging out and they look very together as a couple. And Kyle is wearing ripped jeans like Morgan and trucker hats. And this is not my joke, but somebody put it side by side with Wayne's World. Wayne's World. And they are both, Kyle and Morgan are dressed just like the stars of Wayne's World. And it's hilarious. So that all happened this weekend. So that was kind of, and then also Gigi Hadid was on a date with Bradley Cooper. Allegedly, it looks like that. There's paparazzi photos. Kind of an interesting pairing. She was dating Leonardo DiCaprio. We didn't know if Bradley was getting back with his former wife and mother of his child. So, and then she went, the Irinka or whatever her name is, she went back to Tom Brady. Who knows? But they went on a date. I think it's juicy. I like it. All right, you guys. Now I'm really excited for you to listen to this interview. It is with return guest Scott Nathan. And let me tell you what we get into because it is juicy. We talk about more tips for sugar babies. We talk about how modeling has changed. We talk about an amazing story of his finding his adoptive family, which is so juicy and unexpected. So get ready for a juicy, fun one. Enjoy. Hi, Juicy Scoopers. Thanks for watching me on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel and please hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my episodes and juicy, funny videos that I post here. Thank you. I have one of the guys that just tells the juiciest scoops ever, and you guys have really enjoyed him, and you've been begging for this ginger to return.
Ginger back.
Yes, I have another ginger, Brad Wallach, but you are my newer ginger, named Scott Nathan, photographer, commercial actor, model in the music industry, and really gatekeeper of the juiciest stories that now you are not gatekeeping anymore and you're sharing with us.
Nope. We have 57 juicy stories coming out soon on the Big Book of Bad Decision, which I'm hoping to drop October 10th.
Yes. Well, first I want to just go, you posted something about this recently on your TikTok.
Heather.
And it is, I remember the show is on the CW.
Mm-hmm.
Is the CW still around?
I have no idea.
Okay, anyway.
Never saw the show.
And you were on the poster, but you weren't in the movie, in the TV show. It's called Beauty and the Geek.
Produced by Ashton Kutcher.
Wait, it was a movie.
No, it was a TV show. It was a series.
And it was the third season?
This was season 3, yeah.
They had 3 seasons of this, and then you're on the poster,
Yes.
like looking like a typical like nerd with the, like as, I don't think I've ever seen a guy with glasses where they have masking tape on it.
I think it might have been a Band-Aid.
A Band-Aid.
Yeah.
A mismatch made in heaven.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of remembering this show. It was like a dating show where really pretty girls are like, these douchey guys have done nothing for us, so now we're going to go for the nice nerd.
The nerds, yeah.
So tell us how you got this.
I never saw the show. It was produced by Ashton Kutcher.
Okay.
Okay, so in modeling and acting, the dream is the direct booking. You know, you've done commercials, I have. You have to go there, then you have to go to a callback, and then sometimes a second callback, and then a fitting. This one was like my agent called me and she's like, honey, I got a direct booking for you. And I'm like, oh, that's the dream. What is it? And she's like, and it's stills. It'll be fast. And I'm like, what is it? And she's like, oh, that's for this TV show. So I show up there and they've got plastic pocket protectors and glasses held together with Band-Aids. and all these nerdy outfits. There's another one that I didn't find for you. It's called Trendy versus Trekkie, and it has like a hot girl in a little black dress. And I'm standing there pigeon-toed with like New Balance sneakers and polyester pants that are, halfway up my leg.
Just looking as geeky as possible.
As geeky as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm lying here with this hot bikini girl. And I did it. And it was just another job. Like I did it. I promptly forgot about it. And then cut to, I'm at the Lakers game, the Davis Factor, and we went up to the balcony of the Staples Center to just like take a little break and smoke, whatever. And I've got my back to the city, and he's facing out, and he goes, ah! And I go, well, what's wrong with you? And he goes, turn around. And the entire side of the Hotel Figaro was that picture. And then we leave the building, and it's on every bus and every bus stop, and it's on the 101 freeway, and it's on by Warner Brothers on the billboards. And this thing was omnipresent. And I was trying to deny it, but it's pretty hard to deny. People are like, is that you on Beauty and the Geek? And I'm like, no, it's not me.
So how much did you get paid? Do you recall?
I don't remember. I want to say maybe a couple of grand.
And what was the show a hit? It was the third season, so it must have done okay. Was this the third and final season? Do you know?
I don't have the slightest idea.
I just kind of remember when I saw this, I was like, okay, I do remember this. Kind of one of those weird memories where you're like, I don't know if I saw it. I don't know if I saw it on the billboard or whatever. So how long was it out and about haunting your days as you went and got coffee?
Months. And like my family saw it. Kids I went to high school saw it. And they're like, stop trying to deny it's you. That's you. We know that's you. And I'm like, fine, it's me. And they're like, how did you get on the show? I'm like, I've never seen the show. And they're like, why didn't they use someone from the show? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not in the TV business. I don't know why they used me. But
that is kind of interesting. Yeah, they didn't use someone from the show, but I can see that, maybe there wasn't someone that had that perfect geek factor.
Perfect.
Where you have a redhead, everything about it. It's perfect.
And just what they did with my hair.
Was a girl laying next to you, or were you did it by yourself?
No, she was laying next to me. She was a nice girl. I can't remember. Daniela, I think was her name. And she's just like this. I think she came from Body Parts Models. Do you know that agency?
No, but explain to the people.
So folks at home, if you can't afford a real model and you want, say, beautiful hands to display a watch or a manicure.
Wait, move a little forward, more forward.
Or beautiful feet or great legs or a great butt. There's this place. There's two agencies. I can't remember what the other one's called, but there's one called Body Parts Models, and the guy who owns it's a real pisser. I called him and I said, do you have like an agency motto? And he says, yes, bodies to die for, faces to protect them, which is amazing.
I dated a guy who was a very good-looking guy, and he was a normal model, but he was also just getting into hand modeling. So he was like very self-conscious about doing anything with this, even though he's athletic and stuff. It was like, no, I have to protect these hands. Yeah, and I have to sunscreen. And he was like a surfer. He was like a really cute guy. But he was like, the hand modeling thing is like a whole extra side gig.
Yeah.
And that can do really well, with like holding a product.
I use them for movie posters because the thing is, when you're doing a movie poster shoot, you're not getting an actor for a 10-hour day. So what we would do is we'd get all these girls from Body Parts Models and even from Model Mayhem, put them in all the poses, experiment with them all day, and they were practically free. They were a couple $100 for a 10-hour day. And then we would Photoshop the movie stars' heads on them afterward.
Yeah, well, I know that Pretty Woman, when the movie came out, there was this, before the movie came out, this person that I knew had the poster in their room. And I go, what's that about? And it was Julia Roberts and, Richard Gere. And they're like, no, don't you know, whatever the girl's Paige or whatever, she's a DG. She's the body model. She was the body model for Julia Roberts. And I go, really? And then I was so conscious of like the parts in the movie where she puts her back up against the Ferrari and he's like, all right, come on, help me drive the car. And I'm like, yeah, that's too tiny of a waist, too perfect of a butt, even though Julia Roberts has, a fantastic figure.
It's awkward being in a casting room because like there are norms, there are conventions. So like when a model comes in, even if she's got like a very sexy outfit on, I'm looking at in the eye and I'm talking to them and then I look at their book. But these girls come into castings. I remember I did a gig for Skechers and we needed legs and butt models. So you open up their portfolios and they're all pictures of their ass. And they're like, do you want me to walk for you? And I'm like, sure. And you feel weird just staring at someone's butt. And you're like, oh, that's a good butt. Oh, that one's a little higher. That one's a little rounder. And it's a funny business, but something for everyone.
Okay, well, I'm going to say something right now that I'm looking at this. That's not a great hand with a short,
That is
stubby finger.
That is not a great hand. No
Oh my God.
manicure.
So I just switched to another photo and it's just of Scott's face, but it's obviously a girl hand because it has a red nail, but it actually looks kind of manly and it almost looks like there's like a little hairy
I think
knuckle.
there's a little hair on that, and it's like the cuticle's
my
not
God.
painted, and it's kind of stumpy.
That's so interesting.
I guess the CW didn't want to kick down for the hand model, but it was
No.
one of the two other models that I worked with that day.
Oh my gosh, so funny. Yes. Okay. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to go just to your book. This is the Book of Bad Decisions.
The Big Book of Bad Decisions.
The Big Book of Bad Decisions, and you can pre-order it, buy it. What's going on right now?
By the time it airs, there will be a Kickstarter campaign, and I don't have the URL for it, but if you go to baddecisionsbook.com and there's a QR code, you can sign up for the mailing list, and I will just hit you the second it drops.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so now let's get into, I want to talk a little bit about, we were talking about models. I'm just going to go back to this one just
Okay.
so we can, hold on. We're talking about models, and you did a TikTok, and I was like, okay, I want to discuss more because you did all these huge modeling campaigns, in the last 25 years or whatever. Explain to me what you were saying on your TikTok about how much the industry has sort of changed. And you can be honest, and this might be, some people may not like it, but I think it's interesting. Go ahead.
I'm going to let it fly. And
Yeah.
and I'm unapologetic. Look,
Good.
I
It's called Juicy Scoop, people.
I believe in inclusion. I did one of the most well-known campaigns of inclusion of different body types, my Naya campaign. And I believe that there is a place for it. But I don't believe if everyone's a model, Heather, no one's a model. Like, I'm not down with it. I believe that there should be gatekeepers to a degree. Like, I wanted to play for the Lakers when I was a kid. Didn't work out. Way it goes. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't think if the influencer models of today are the best we can do, I am unimpressed. And I'm sorry. Like, the supermodels of the 80s and 90s are not what today is. And I'm not gonna flame anybody by naming names, but we all know who we're talking about. And it's unfortunate because castings are done by follower count, not by skill, not by natural beauty.
You mean by the influencer having 10 million followers, she gets the campaign?
Yeah.
Versus back in the day where you could be, not have any followers, be just a pretty girl that really wants to model, get in with an agent, do your stuff, show up on time, and be stunning.
Yeah, or plucked from obscurity like Kate Moss.
Right.
And it's the same thing holds true with photographers. The photographers that are booking the most gigs are the people who shoot the most pornographic images on their Instagram. They get the big followers, and then they don't know what they're doing. And then there's also models who are now photographers. Like, I know a pretty big model that I worked with once before, who then she said, I'm going to be a photographer. So I ran into her at the lab on Wilshire Boulevard one day, and she goes, oh, I just shot a Levi's campaign and a Ray-Ban campaign. Do you want to see my film? And I was like, yeah, sure. And she did not know what she was doing. And I was looking at the contact sheets on the table, and she didn't know that you could move the autofocus point on the screen. So she had the default autofocus point, which was the center of the frame. So there's all these denim shirts for Levi's, and the focus is on the button in the middle of the shirt, and all of the faces were out of focus. And I said, you can move the autofocus point, or you can just point at the face and then recompose and take the picture. And she goes, you know what? I didn't ask for your fucking help.
Oh, God.
And I said, well, you did kind of. And you know what? To these businesses, I don't feel sorry for you at all. You got what you deserved. You hired a model to do a photo shoot, and you got burned. And shoots are expensive, but you know what's really expensive? Reshoots. So,
but, we were saying, I think it's kind of interesting when sometimes I'm walking through Target, and I'm in the beauty section, and, there's a big photo of a girl, and it's up close because we're in the skin aisle. And I'm like, this girl doesn't even have good skin.
No.
I'm like, is this a new thing, like to show the pores and the facial hair that they didn't even exfoliate with
a lot of brands are doing the we don't retouch thing. And it's like, I'm not a ham-fisted retoucher. I've never done that much of it. But I also try to get it in camera. When you're selling skincare, I only want to see girls with perfect skin. If I'm selling hair, I only want to see girls with epic hair. Our job as photographers and as models is to sell soap. And by soap, that's just an X for whatever it is that we're selling. When I shot the U.S. Marine Corps campaign, I didn't get an out-of-shape guy with a fat stomach. I would never hire me to shoot a Marines campaign.
Right.
I chose the guys with the best bodies. We are there to sell consumer products. We're there to sell faces or makeup canvases. Clothes are clothing hangers. There's a reason that models were always 5'9" to 5'11", because that's what the drawings look like. That's the way dresses look the best. It's not personal. I love you all. As a man, I'm generally grateful for whatever's next to me. But as a photographer, I want perfection, because I can't make a great photo with someone who isn't photogenic, doesn't have experience, has never practiced it, and just doesn't have the chops. Just like you wouldn't watch a donkey race in the Kentucky Derby. Nobody wants to see that. Sorry.
I know. It's like, I have joked where I'm like, gosh, why is it wrong that a pretty girl does get jobs for pretty girls? She's pretty. That's one of her gifts. Maybe she's also really smart, but maybe she isn't smart enough to be an astronaut. Okay.
Yeah.
So let her have the job. Or let her be the person that gets, hired to be whatever, the model in the movie,
which is
whatever.
A narrow job anyway. Like, if you look at in the best of circumstances, a model, and there are exceptions, but a model is like a pro athlete. If you're lucky, and I mean really lucky, you'll have a 3 to 5 year career. Then you have to do something else anyway.
Yeah.
We all have our windows. We all like to think we're aging like first growth Bordeaux, but we're not.
Now, you did another one I thought that was interesting about girls you knew that went for the breast augmentation. Okay, tell me about that and your opinion on that.
So this is just, there's no peer-reviewed scientific studies on this, but I've been around. I'm not infinitely wise, but I am infinitely experienced. Anything you've done, I have probably already overdone, people. So I have just, and this isn't just models, this isn't just adult performers. I know people in the State Department. I know people on the news. Everyone I know, almost without exception, who got breast augmentations, either upgraded their dating life, got a great husband, got a better job, got more promotions. These are the science of boobs.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. Well, I think it's based, and I think the same thing goes for a nose job besides Jennifer Grey. And even Jennifer Grey might be like, I don't care. I'm still happier with when I have to wake up in the morning and brush my teeth and look in the mirror. Like, I don't know. I think it's plastic surgery in general. And I think if it's something that bothered you, you didn't like the size of your breast, or you didn't like your nose or whatever.
Or
you
your
didn't like
proportions
your teeth.
to your hips or
yeah,
whatever.
like I think anybody that goes for it, in the most part, provided they don't go down this road of the exaggerated ass or the ridiculous balloon boobs, or, where they're on botched being like, I got addicted to it. Just, a tweak here or there. I think it's great. And I always say, look, God created plastic surgeons. There was a time where I'm sure people were critical of women who were getting their teeth straightened with braces. I'm sure there was a time where it was like, oh, she's so vain, she got braces. And then it all became everybody gets braces in middle school. And, or a time where women had gray hair and they started to dye their hair, and the ladies around the village or whatever probably gave them shit for it. So I think it's the same thing. I do think all these things will just become more normal.
Yeah, and this isn't me encouraging people to get breast augmentations. I love cute little A's that look good in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Personally, I've just noticed this. And to me, know thyself. If it's something I've known girls that were kind of bigger frame girls that have big hips, and they're like, I want to get a little boob to even me out proportionally. And it's know thyself. And I've also seen terrible cases of body dysmorphia disorder where they can't stop.
Right.
I have one friend, and I'm like, you're doing the right amount, just a little bit of lip, but I can see you're going too far. And she went from looking like the prettiest girl in high school to just an old plastic. She looks 15 years older than she looks now because of so much filler and so much Botox and the giant veneers. Does she not
see it yet, or does she see it?
No, she's in total dysmorphia. She just keeps going. She cannot stop.
I know. And I just think it's because there's a certain people, it's that certain look. Even when you look at somebody, you're like, oh, a photo on Instagram, and you're like, oh, I thought that was Khloe Kardashian, or I thought that because everybody's
look
getting
the
the same look.
Same look, same doctors.
And I really think that's crazy. If you want to be in this business, don't you want to stand out? I mean, you can still be very pretty and have a slight bump on your nose.
And I think our imperfections make us perfect. Like, I think to me, some of the sexiest things, like, we're dating ourselves here, but Michelle Pfeiffer's lopsided mouth, I thought was like one of the sexiest things ever.
Yeah.
I like prominent noses on women. It's my thing.
Right. And it just makes you, I mean, it's like, look at Barbara Streisand. If Barbara Streisand would have gotten a nose job, she wouldn't have been her. She wouldn't have been that woman that like was so convincing in these parts, because you're like, I know that woman, you know, like I think if you want to be a real actress, that you should hold back on some of these major look changes, you know?
Yeah. If I see too much of it and the humanity goes away in the face, I won't book them. You know, I feel like a lot of women are out there getting work done in a vain attempt to extend their career when they are in fact ending it. Because I'll see the ridge on the lip and I'm like, I can't shoot around that. And I'm not paying somebody
because of the filler. You mean?
Yeah, the filler, where
flip.
it looks like a coaster you could put a drink on.
Yeah.
Or they look like a grouper, you know, like a big lipped fish. Or there's no expression. There's nothing around here and there's nothing in the forehead. And I'm like, I need humanity. And it reminds me of that other TikTok I did about did you see the Glamour magazine, the first AI fashion editorial?
Oh, yes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I saw this and I'm like, well, here we go. The model's been replaced, the photographer's been replaced, everything's been replaced. And you look through it, and at a glance, it looks just like any other fashion photograph. But when you look at it, the eyes are just lifeless and cold, and the skin is plasticky. And, you know, I think AI is going to be good for a lot of things. It'll be great for coding websites. It'll be great for making white pages. It will replace extras in movies that are out of focus. It'll be great for stuff like that. But I believe, and a lot of people think I'm just old school thinking, I believe you need humanity to create humanity.
I just saw Raven Simone in an interview, and, you know, she was the little kid on Cosby Show, but she went on to be That's So Raven. She was on The View. I've worked with her. She's like a really smart woman.
Right.
And it was like, well, what do you think? You know, which is often when even though these people go on to be successful, same thing when I interviewed Corey Feldman, you know, what do you think about child actors or whatever? And she actually said, I don't think a child actor should be on camera working at all in any capacity until they're over 10. And maybe if you need that child, use AI. Which I think is kind of a hard, bizarre thing, because I do think there are people that have done it right. I mean, you're telling me that, like, you know, Ron Howard wasn't a successful
Turned
story.
out just fine, yeah.
You know, Fred Savage. I mean, there's people that can do it, that go on to other things like it, and, you know, providing their parents are okay. And especially now today,
you have to have really good parents too.
Yeah.
You know, I worked with Lindsay Lohan, as you know.
Right.
And I love Lindsay, and I like her dad okay, and I'm not blaming her parents, but here's the thing, like, I've had the crap kicked out of me a lot in my life. I've been humbled a lot in my life because I've gone through this, but I can't imagine me at 16, 15, 18 years old, where I'm in a world with unlimited money, where no one's telling me no, and I can't think of the level of a-hole I would have been. The entitlement. And I'm a nice guy, but I also have been told no plenty.
Well, we had an agent, Iris Burton. Did you ever hear of Iris Burton back in your day? She was a big child agent.
Okay.
I think she might have had like Leonardo DiCaprio, whatever. And she was our agent, my two sisters and I, because she was representing the neighbors or whatever. And she met us. And my sister Shannon, who went on to be an attorney, she worked a lot. And my other sister and I were brown hair, brown eyes, but she was lighter skinned. She had blue eyes, freckles, blonde hair. That was the look they wanted more than our look. And she was good at it. And she got a bunch of commercials and stuff. And my mom would take me out of school. And then they said, she's got to have pigtails and she's got to wear these overalls. So then my mom would have to like brush my hair out, put them in pigtails, drive me there. And I remember, like, by the time I got to Hollywood, I was so tired. I fell asleep and I wasn't good in the room. And then at home, I'd be like, I'd be doing characters and running around. And my mom was like, why can't you be like this when I take you in the room? And I remember feeling so guilty that I had wasted her time and not booked anything. And I knew how much time it took out of her day and how it wasn't resulting in anything for her, for myself, for the family. And I just thought of that. Like I really was like, God, you're right. I suck. Like I suck. And then I didn't really pursue it. Then my mom, then Shannon was stopped booking stuff and they stopped calling because she got out of the age range. Yeah. And they took that money and I don't think we put it in in her private fund. I really don't. Because all of a sudden we had an addition. But anyway, to our house. But my parents, she had a good life. They paid for college, whatever. But honestly, I don't know. And back then, commercials made a lot. And the kids were real jealous of her. And they were like, oh, we saw you on Bold 3. And they were so mean and bullying her. And they're like, how much you make off that? How much you make off that? And my mom said, just say you made a lot. Well, that didn't make the kids happy.
No.
And so then whatever. Then by high school, she wasn't doing it. No one was remembering and nobody cared. And then she never pursued it. And then I did. But yeah, it is a weird thing no matter how nice and great your parents are. And I just thought of that. That is hard.
Yeah. Peter O'Toole said something funny. He says, there's no such thing as a effing child actor. They're just children that are either watchable or not.
That is, yeah, you're right. Like, why are they working? It's like saying, I mean, this isn't right, but I'm just saying when people say, a child prostitute or a teen prostitute, no, they're victims. Like, you can't be. So, and it's probably a bad example, but I'm saying like, you're right. They're just children. They shouldn't have jobs.
Yeah, there's a weird X factor that some people are just watchable, and it's not by how pretty they are, because you look at Philip Seymour Hoffman, and that guy would chew through the scenery. He could have 3 lines in a movie, and I'd be like, oh, that was a freight train.
Yeah,
some people like
you can't take your eyes off of them.
Yeah, I don't love like Will Smith movies necessarily, but I'll always watch a Will Smith movie because he's so watchable.
Oh, so interesting.
He's a movie star, and it's one of those things that I've never managed to figure out. But some people are just more watchable than others.
I know, and I had
like you.
Oh, thank you. I had this one guy that said, I'm not a good actor, but I'm really good at auditioning. And he never became like an Oscar winner, but he would book a lot of stuff as a teenager and a young adult. He'd book the guest spots. He'd book the pilots. It wasn't an ultimate success, but he was that person that would just come and get the job done, be charming in the room, hit the lines, hit the mark, make it easy for everyone.
I worked on a shoot with Lisa Kudrow once. Yeah. And I know I kind of roasted her on Instagram a little bit.
Why? What did you say?
TikTok. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So, but I asked her, I said, I had a friend that worked on Friends, my friend Todd. And I asked her, I said, I know how that was one of the toughest cycles of auditions ever. I know all about it. How do you think you won it when everybody else just kept call back? There were a lot of callbacks and a lot of pressure. And she said, all I did was the same exact thing every time. And I watched everybody second guess themselves and choke and panic in the waiting area. And I just did the same thing over and over and over again until I got it.
She's really smart. So she was my teacher at the Groundlings.
Was she?
Yeah. And I absolutely loved her. And she grew up here in Woodland Hills. She went to Taft High. Mm-hmm. And she basically was someone who was really smart, kind of like Keanu Wayne's, where they wanted to pursue the arts, but they also had like a science brain, and they figured out comedic timing and the math of a joke. And her brother was friends with, oh my God, the name is escaping me, from SNL, where he'd be like the lying guy. Oh my God.
John Lovitz?
Yes.
I love him.
Her brother was friends with John Lovitz. And then John Lovitz was at the Groundlings, and she went to like go see a show or something. And she thought, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. And she was at Vassar.
Yeah.
And her dad was a doctor. So she had like the kind of science brain. And, but she kind of was like, no, I think I'd rather do this. And so he was like, go join the Groundlings, whatever. And she would watch sitcoms over and over and over again. And that's when you had to be there to watch them. You couldn't like just watch it on YouTube. Yeah. And she kind of studied rhythm.
Brain,
she studied the rhythm and everything. And then she also had this unique, funny ability of creating, original characters like she did for Phoebe, really.
Kind of thin air, yeah.
But it was that kind of a thing. And And then when I was doing, when she was my teacher and she moved me to the next level and she called and said, okay, you're going to the next level. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, And she goes, no, she's like, you get it. She's like, you get what is funny. Not everybody gets it, and just keep doing what you're doing. And, but she was great. She was always so nice. But sometimes it can be that. Sometimes it can be, everyone has their own path and their own, using their own special talents to get to what they want,
Yeah, her thing was just like, her thought process was like, they're calling me back for a reason. It means they like the thing I did last time. So she just stayed in this character and never deviated from it and just didn't allow herself to get rattled. And look, we all get rattled.
Yeah.
Like I don't get rattled in auditions, but when you walk into a callback and there's 20 people in the room and they're all just like looking at laptops and eating pizza and not paying attention, You
mean the producers and stuff when you get into the room?
Yeah, well, you have all the people from the ad agency and all the client people and the director, and everyone just looks nervous and tense, and all the actors are nervous and tense, and you're just like, this is my moment,
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, let's talk about some other fun things. Now, you had kind of an interesting Britney Spears story you wanted to share.
Oh my God, yeah. So the only reason I'm telling this juice is because my friend was like so done that she was just like, yeah, you can name my name. I'm not going to name her name. But a friend of mine worked at a big music management company. And one of the clients that she was assigned to was the day-to-day looking after Britney Spears. And it was a most unpleasant experience for her.
She was the day-to-day person.
Yeah, she was the day-to-day person who was at Britney's side at
and
all
what
times.
Year are we talking?
2006, 2007, around there. So I didn't know that she always had a different band, or that she's one of those people who always has the craziest job. So she called me out of the blue and she's like, Scott, Nathan, I need your help right now. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, I'm with Britney and she will not put her costume on. I said, what are you talking? Britney who? And she goes, Spears. And I go, where are you? And she goes, we're backstage at the VMA Awards, and she will not put on her. Hold on. Britney, you cannot go on stage in your underwear. You have to put on your costume. And then I hear Britney in the background going, I could do whatever I want to do, and you don't get to tell me what to do. And she's like, oh my God, Scott, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown right now. Ken Paves was just here for 6 hours putting the most beautiful hair extensions into her hair, and she's cutting them out with nail scissors. So I was just like, oh, I don't know how I can help, Michelle. I'm sitting here on my couch. And she was just like, so she goes, she has to go on stage now. What do I do? And I'm like, it sounds like she doesn't want to put the costume on. So I'm like, just let her go. She's like, well, do you have any other advice? I go, no, I'm going to go watch this on TV right now. So I put it on TV, and she was, I rewatched it again last night after we spoke, and it doesn't look as bad in hindsight as it was in the moment, but it was.
Was it like,
messy.
was she wearing like little low black shorts, or what was it?
It was just like a sparkly top and sparkly little shorts, if memory serves. And then she immediately got fired for contradicting Britney. So she went back to her big fantasy suite. I think it was at the Rio, one of those giant like Playboy mansion suites.
In Vegas?
Yeah, it was in Vegas. And she ordered a pitcher of martinis and was like drowning her sorrows and calling me. And she's just drunk and crying and upset. And she goes, wait, hold on. Someone's banging at my door. And I go, don't answer it. And she goes, no, they will not stop knocking. She goes, hang on. So she walks to the front door of the suite. She looks out the peephole. It is Britney Spears. No entourage, no security, just Britney in a party dress. And she opens the door and she's like, what do you want? And she's like, let's go out and party. Let's go to the club. And she's like, you just fired me. She goes, let it go. Let's just go out to the club. She's like, I don't want to go out to the club with you. I hate you. You fired me. And she's like, oh, come on. Don't be a stick in the mud. Let's go out. She's like, no, and slammed the door in Britney's face.
So she didn't go out.
She did not go out. And then she ran into Britney a few years ago, like 2 years ago. And they were together every day, all day at Britney's house. And she goes, hey, Britney. And she goes, oh, hi, it's so nice to meet you. What's your name? And she says it. And she goes, it's really nice to meet you. And she's like, Britney, I worked with you every day for 2 years. She goes, are you sure? Because I don't think so. And she's like, Britney, it's me. And she didn't remember. So then I called her back about the whole Free Britney thing when that was going down. And I go, what do you think about the whole Free Britney thing? It sounds like she's had a tough road. She goes, she has had a tough road. Do not, under any circumstances, free Britney. And I'm like, what will she do? She goes, she could buy a jetliner and fly it into a mountain. Do not free Britney. Not now, not ever. She's that person muttering things, pushing a grocery cart down the street. She just happens to have a lot of money.
Wow.
So that was was a firsthand account.
Her opinion, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, with the latest knife thing, Dancing with the Knives, you saw that she was doing that.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was just a little attention seeking. I
right.
didn't look
but she
dangerous
does
to me.
love knives. And one thing I remember that I don't think I've shared is I had a friend who worked with some hotel and she was there and she took knives to the couch and they were just like, all right, you know, they just pay for the couch or whatever. But
She destroyed them.
Yeah, she would do that allegedly at
Yeah.
different hotels or whatnot. And, you know, they keep it quiet because they replace it just like any rock star that, you know,
Yeah, you send
ruins
them
a
a bill.
room. Yeah. But I do think there was some, that when I saw the knife, I'm like, there's a little bit of a fascination with knives, whether they're real, fake, prop, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. She seems like a handful, doesn't she?
Now, you are known originally, really became a star because you would give your friends who were aspiring and practicing sugar babies some different types of tips. And where have you gone with your career as being a life coach for sugar babies?
Well, I have some recurring clients, and I frequently
So you
have
have
new
real
ones.
clients.
I have some, yeah, not a ton, but you know, I do it. I'll do it in the afternoons for a couple of hours, once or twice a week
On the phone.
on the phone. Yeah,
Just
occasionally on Zoom.
Just like a life coach.
Exactly a life coach, but a sex worker life coach.
Okay. And so give us some free stuff that we can gain from being, if somebody's listening and is aspiring or doing one.
So the thing I care most about, obviously, is their safety.
Right.
And a lot of women don't know the basic fundamentals of keeping themselves safe. So I usually start with that as a baseline. I'll be like, don't use any photos in your sugar apps that you use on your TikTok or your Instagram or your Facebook.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because reverse Google image search, you can find out who someone's name is and find out what they do for a living and really screw up their life.
So you have your life. So I'm Heather McDonald. I'm 25. Okay. I want to be a sugar baby.
Okay.
So I only have, 1,000 followers between high school, college, and my job. And here I am at the Laker game. Here I am with my mom at Christmas. Okay. So you're saying, and I might even have a really flattering one. Don't use that.
Never.
Do a whole different photo from with a different background, everything. And then that's my sugar baby profile.
For starters. And you never give anyone your real phone number. You go get a Google Voice or some kind of burner phone number that you can text and email on. And
that's important because if you want to get rid of them too, it'll be an easier way to block them and get rid of them.
Yeah, but there's also reverse lookups for cell phone numbers too. Like I could probably take your cell phone number and put it into Google, and there's probably a website that could reverse engineer it and have your name and your address. So safety first.
Okay.
And then I always say, like, don't, this is chess, it's not checkers. Don't go for the kill right out of the gate. Like, do not go meet someone you haven't spoken to on the phone and that you can't vet. Don't just go show up at a hotel room or for a car date. Get to know them. Ask for their copy of their ID. Ask for a link to their LinkedIn. Ask for a business card. And some guys might tell you to F off, but I want to keep you alive first and foremost.
Well, if they tell you to F off, then they weren't real. Like I remember when I was doing real estate, you would never just put some guy or girl or whatever in your car. They had to come to the office. They would leave their ID or they'd take a photo of the ID, the receptionist would. And then really more importantly is you got them pre-approved by a mortgage broker before you ever showed them a piece of property.
Proof of funds.
And if they ever got weird about it, well, then you're not really interested in the house,
That's
right?
right.
I mean,
That's
it makes
right.
a lot of sense.
That's right.
Yeah.
I had a client call me last night who lives right here in LA, and it was literally the grossest thing I've ever heard about a sugar dating request.
Tell.
This guy says, I want you to overeat, preferably Mexican food, and I will pay $2,000 if you come over to this, it was a gross motel in Van Nuys, and vomit on me. And I was like, I don't like the sound of this at all. I don't think you should
How much
go
was
to
he
this.
offering her?
$2,000. So she's like, I used to be bulimic. I could vomit really easily.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, are you going to do this? I don't like this at all. Can't you go meet this guy for a coffee first and just see? And she goes, I'm just going to give it a go. I'll share my location with you. And she went and she did it. She stuck her finger down her throat and she projectile vomited all over this guy. And he said, thank you, mistress. And he gave her the money in advance.
You get the money before you even walk in
You
the room?
always get the money. You say, the line I tell everyone to use is, "Hi, it's so nice to meet you. Do you have something for me?"
Classy.
You know.
And you say like cash in an envelope, never a Zelle or a Venmo?
No, because, well, PayPal's can be reversed. Zelle's can't. But I always say to ask for cash because you also don't want the tax liability.
Okay. Now the what else? What else do you have for them that you've discovered? You had said on the previous show about the kind of gifts if they want to get. Now people have like Amazon wish gifts or go on my sugar baby wish list so that you know that if you want to give me a gift, I want these Prada sunglasses. So when we meet for our first date, you can hand me that first gift. And the guy like gets off on that. He likes doing that.
Yeah.
And at least it's something you want. So are you for that?
Yeah, I'm all about it. I'm all about real communication because there's a lot of guys out there that are just, their kink is they're never going to meet you. They're never going to give you any money and they're just wasting your time. They're going, "Oh, well, you don't do full service. What if I gave you 10 grand? What if I gave you 20 grand? And they're like, "Well, if you give me 20 grand, I'll have sex with you." And then it never happens anyway. So you have to really separate the wheat from the chaff.
Oh, so they're just wasting your time just talking to you.
It's just their kink, seeing if they can manipulate girls. There's so much of that out there.
Interesting.
Or they're like, "Oh, I don't use third-party apps like Venmo or Zelle or PayPal, but I can email you a check that you can then photograph and direct deposit. And then there's ways to scam the bank and you end up with like banking fees." So I say, don't, you can be nice, but you can be very firm. These are my boundaries. These are my standards. I'm going to need a 2-minute FaceTime call with you. I want to know who you are. I want to know what you do. It's for both of our safeties. And then a lot of them are just like, "Well, how much extra would it be for no condom?" And they're like, "You have to get a test within 24 hours. I can give you the names of some places to go to."
A COVID test? No, just kidding.
Yeah. No, you can go to the place that all the adult performers here in the Valley go, and within less than 12 hours, you get a PDF in your phone. You go there. I'll give them a plug. There's one called talent testing, and there's another one called cutting edge testing. It's where everyone in the adult business goes. And when people in the past have asked me, they're like, "How, you've dated."
And so do a lot of girls do that, providing they get the test, that it's worth it because the guy really wants to experience a no condom situation?
Yeah, if she does it and they do it, they'll do it, but they'll usually charge a premium for it.
I still would be nervous that they could see someone in between, or it might not be 100%.
Yeah, that's fair.
Pretty much like anybody could kind of do it, right? I mean, it's like there's all different types, and it shouldn't matter.
I've had women reach out to me and they're like, "I'm 28. Am I aged out?" And I'm like, "You are not aged out. As Henry Ford said, there's an ass for every seat. There's someone for everyone." I mean, hell, I was a sugar baby during COVID.
Oh, that's right. You had that girlfriend, right?
Yeah. And that was like her kink was giving me money in exchange for playing with her. But I mean, I would have done it anyway, but that was her kink, was treating me like a prostitute.
So with these girls, are they also pursuing real love?
Yeah, I think I know someone who did that. So I know a girl that was like getting paid well below what she deserved. She was meeting guys on Seeking, but she was broke. And she was meeting guys on Seeking.
But she is boning.
Yes, boning. Always boning.
Yeah.
But so she was like a beautiful, tall, statuesque, blonde, smart, sassy, funny. And she was doing guys for like $400. And finally, sifted through enough chaff and finally met this guy she really liked.
Who was a client. Who
every Friday night she would go to his house in the hills and he'd give her 10 grand every weekend. Sometimes she'd usually stay over, but she really liked him. She's like, "I would marry this guy. I would have a kid with him." And he kept saying, "I want to have a kid with you." But it kept not happening. And this guy was one of those guys who was kind of just addicted to having a lot of girls like this. And he'd been burned twice and divorced. So she's just like, "I would date him in a second." So he just kept giving her the 10 grand a week for years and years and years.
So then with 10 grand a week, could she stop doing the $400
deals?
Yeah,
yeah. She gave all them up.
Yeah.
And then one day she was like, her lease expired and she had like a cheap car. And she's like, "I'm going to go get a new lease of the same car." And he goes, "Well, I'll come with you. I can hopefully, I can help you negotiate." So they get to the dealership and he's like, "Why don't you get the convertible?" She's like, "I can't afford the convertible. I just want the base model." He's like, "Why don't you get the sports package?" And she's like, I'm just getting the same car, same color that I had." And he goes, "Just wait right here." And he goes, "You come with me," to the salesman. And he walked away with the salesman, gave him his black card, got her a loaded convertible with everything on it. And he's like, yeah, put it in her name, and just bought her a car on the spot. So they're out there.
But she didn't marry him.
No, she would have.
Well, is she still seeing him?
No, because she moved to a different country. But when she comes back and visits, they don't even necessarily hook up. He still gives her the money. He just loves her. He calls her salt of the earth, and he just gives her money every time he sees her. And he's one of those guys that's so rich that like 10 grand to him is like me giving you a candy bar.
Right. Okay. So I have a question. Has anybody ever like been seeing a sugar daddy or whatever, and then that guy is getting married? I know a lot of them are married, but the guy is actually like pursuing someone else and keeping the girl on the side. And like they're at that moment where they're like, do I tell? Like, it's one thing to be seeing a guy who has a wife. Okay, I get that. They're miserable. Who cares? Da da da. I have nothing to do with it. He pursued me. But I think that would be a weird position for a sugar baby to be in. Like, let's say you're seeing this guy. Like, let's say this situation with this guy.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, he's nice and he's great. And then somehow through Instagram or through a friend, or maybe she's walking down the street, she sees him and he's engaged. And this girl seems like a really great girl. She's smart. She thinks she's marrying the greatest guy. Like, this could be like a juicy movie if I was ever inclined to write something. And like, what do? Do you tell, like, girl to girl? Do you tell the girl, this is what you're getting into?
You tell.
Does a sugar baby tell the fiance?
No. As Cary Grant once said, you don't pay prostitutes to come over, you pay them to leave. You're paying for their discretion. I think that would be a terrible thing to do. You never blast someone.
Well, you're not supposed to call them prostitutes anymore, or hookers.
sex workers.
Sex workers. But do you think, and I feel like women that do this are okay saying I'm a sex worker. I think they prefer saying sugar baby.
Yeah.
But do you think they really do perceive themselves as that? I call them hooker lights. I thought that was a funner way to say it because I didn't think it was, I thought there was more to it than the exchange of sex.
It is more complex because it's rare, but I have known girls who get money from guys and don't do anything sexually with them. Like they really are escorts of the traditional meaning. Like they go with them to events and they hang out and maybe they have hooked up once or twice. But there are some types of guys that just like taking care of girls. And I've had
and they just want that companion that's going to show up, be a delight, not fight with them, not ask about anything,
and listen
be pretty.
To them. Yeah. And I can't remember if we've talked about this or not, but I know this one girl from Australia who is a face-meltingly wealthy sex worker. She owns 4 houses. She's flown by guys only private all over the world.
How
She's
old
a
is she?
master of the universe. She's probably 29 by now, but been doing it since her early 20s. And I said to her, what do you think distinguishes you from everyone else? Why is it that you are so successful? Because you're pretty, but you're not orders of magnitude prettier than anyone else in this business. And she said, the difference between me and everybody else is I can walk into a room and know what a guy needs. And it's seldom sex. And I said, give me an example. She goes, I walked into this guy's big house in Bel Air and it was a disaster. There were dirty dishes piled up everywhere. There were 20 pairs of shoes by the door. It was just a disaster area. And I could tell by his body language, he was sad and slouching and depressed. And she was like, how are you? And he's like, I'm okay. And I realized that this guy just needed peace. So I started to talk to him. I cleaned his entire kitchen. I mopped his floors. I took all the shoes by the front door. I put them in the closet. I cleaned his whole house for 3 hours and then sat next to him. And he says, I feel so good when you're around. And he gave her $30,000. She never even took her shoes off.
Yeah, so interesting.
And that's the thing about men that people don't realize. Teenagers, guys in their 20s, they want to get off. They want orgasms. But sometimes men just want to be heard.
So interesting.
It is, isn't it?
It really is. I know. I sometimes think that we forget. I think that's also why men end up with the pretty young girl that's 30 years younger than them, too. And they don't really think about the big picture of, right now she's super into you and she's hanging on your every word and you guys can have fun and you're 55 and she's 25 and it's all going to be fine. But when you're 65 or 70, you're not going to want to be traipsing around Europe and going to an event every night, but she'll only be 40 and she will. And what are the chances of her wanting to stay with you after that?
Yeah.
None.
And
Why don't
I've talked to men and women about this whole thing, and it's very tricky. But having been someone who's had, I had a long-term relationship for 5.5 years with someone half my age. And I have to say that there were great things about it. The great things about it, obviously, from them just looking photoshopped in real life, is they kept me relevant. They kept me current. They kept me knowing like what the new music was, what the TV is, what the vernacular, what the slogans and the saying are. And I would teach them about music and culture and movies, and they would teach me about things they knew, and we worked really well together. Now, of course, long term, this probably went on 2.5 years longer than it would have, but we were best of friends, and she kept me young, and I made her wiser. And it ran its course. But I'd always say to the same thing. I was like, you don't want to be with me. I'm going to be a geriatric and you're going to be my age now. This is a terrible idea long term. And I'm friends with every ex I've ever had. I mean, like, talk on the phone, friends, except one, but that one. But there is something to be said for it. And it's like, was it a Shakespeare line? Youth is beauty, beauty is youth. And, I think if you looked at it from an anthropological level, I think everyone's designed to look their most beautiful by the universe because that's when they're most fertile, therefore the most attractive. So it's like vampires drinking the blood of virgins. Everyone's in pursuit of youth. So it's tricky. And younger women, a lot of younger women don't want to date men their own age.
Right.
Because they're young and stupid. My grandmother used to say, no man worth a damn before 40.
And I think, right. And I know women, can date younger guys now too. And I think that sometimes can be a nice match.
Share.
Share. Or just like, even like a woman, like, oh, I'm in my early 50s. I'm dating a 38-year-old. He doesn't want to have kids. We get along. We're great. Again, I don't know where that'll be when she's 60 and he's still in his 40s. Maybe it'll last, maybe it won't. But so what? He can fix a few things around the house. He bones me good. I'm active and fit. It can
maybe
work.
She can go get a side piece. Maybe we should stop being such Puritans that founded this country. Maybe we could live more like French and Italians, where everybody has a side piece. Everybody takes the summers off. No one ever gets divorced. No one ever humiliates their partner, but every Italian woman, every Italian man, they're all Catholic, God-fearing, but they all got a side piece, but nobody makes a big fuss out of it. Maybe everyone should just live like a Frenchman, have a wife, have a lover.
Whatever works for people. But, it's like, I was at Trader Joe's yesterday.
Okay.
And there's this young, really cute kid that works there. He's maybe 22. Mm-hmm. And, he acts like Keanu Reeves in the original Parenthood movie.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Where he was like, I didn't get 16,000 on my SAT. Okay. But he's cute and he, and I've seen him there. So I'm like looking at the fruit and he's just telling this story about how he fell off his bike to this other guy working at Trader Joe's. And he's just like, and I'm like, I go, what if roles were reversed and me as a woman, let's say I'm a successful woman, but I have a husband, have a few dollars. But I felt like a man. And I was like, this is going to be my sugar baby over here.
Yeah.
This dumb kid, he's going to be so excited when I buy him that electric bike, whatever, motorbike, whatever he's doing. And he's adorable and he's sweet. But I've witnessed him a few times. And he is the epitome of a really pretty girl that's dumb. But he's a dude.
Yeah, he's a hot little thing.
He's a hot,
who could probably cut diamonds with his penis.
Yeah. And doesn't know he's hot also. And just really happy to be, who knows what he's doing. And, but I just thought that would never happen because that is something that a woman my age doesn't want. We don't want another son to raise. We don't want another.
Sometimes they do though.
Sometimes they do, but I don't think it's very often. I think they would rather have the 38-year-old guay. I'm saying if you're going to go a little younger, you don't want a 53-year-old guy is totally going to want that 22-year-old girl sometimes to play around with. But
I don't want it anymore.
Well,
I want
you
nothing
don't,
to
but
do with it
there's
anymore. But I've
still-
also seen the mountaintop. I've eaten the whole buffet. I know how the date ends.
but I'm saying I don't think there's a lot of women my age that if they went for somebody younger that they would want someone that young.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
that's too much. Like it's too much teaching, too much raising, too much. No.
Yeah, but maybe what if it's just straight up like you come over, less talky, more licky?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
But I also think a guy like isn't none of.
I mean, doesn't Madonna date guys in their 20s?
I feel like yes, and but I also feel like girls know of the sugar baby culture. It's been around forever. They could talk to other people. They could see it. Like I don't think there's a ton. I mean, this would make kind of a juicy movie if there was like a bunch of guys that are like, listen, there is this movement going. I'm going to teach you how to do it. When you're at Trader Joe's, like this is what you say. You put a little feeler out. Oh, you married happily, whatever, I work Tuesdays. I don't know. And then like
throw a line into the water.
and then they kind of know the routine or whatever. But I think a young, hot, innocent guy like that, and innocent because he's, he wouldn't even be thinking about it. Like he'd be so like, what? You're my mom's age. Like, I just don't think they're thinking the way.
I don't know. When I was young, I was like really into Cougars.
Really? Okay. Maybe there is more of a market for it, but I feel like
I always flirted
girls
with
are all
old ladies, like the hairdresser. I'd be like, you married?
Yeah.
You guys still get together? I always try. I used to flirt with my doctors. Yeah.
Your female doctors.
Yeah.
Or male doctors.
No,
Doesn't matter. Whatever you want.
No, I know you're without judgment, but no
Yeah.
female doctors. I'd be like, wow, you went to jail. I was like, I said to one, I was like, oh, you went to Yale. You're pretty eligible.
That's
I
amazing.
was like, do a lot of guys flirt with you? And I just tried, they just cut it off. They were like, I'm not talking about anything personal with you.
Let's tell one last story before we get into your book one more time. Tell me about one of the worst breakup stories you've ever heard.
Oh my God. I can think of two off the top of my head. So one was a friend of mine been in a relationship with a guy for nearly 15 years. They never got married, but they lived together on
A girl.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah.
A big agent. Lived with her boyfriend. Was a businessman on the beach in Santa Monica. Great life. One morning, she gets up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to pee or whatever, and he's not in bed. So she gets up and she looks around the house and she can't find him. And then she looks at her phone to see if there was a text or something, and she has an Apple Wallet notification saying $1,500 was charged on your American Express.
On hers.
On hers.
So was she the breadwinner of the couplehood?
No, they both made a lot of money.
Okay.
And this was the very confusing part. And it's Shutters on the Beach, which is a luxury beach hotel in Santa Monica. So she's like, what the actual F? So she gets in her car, doesn't text him, gets in her car, drives right to Shutters on the Beach. And she walks up to the front desk and she says, hi, my name is X, Y, and Z. Here's my ID. I locked my card in the room. Can I get another key card? And they're like, yes, ma'am. And they give her the card and she walks in, and her boyfriend of 15 years is getting railed by an Asian transgender lady. Pounded.
And what did she say? Was she like, I can't even believe my eyes?
She flipped. She was like, what the F is going on here? She's like, I cannot believe you. I cannot believe you're cheating on me.
Now, when she says, and you might not know the story, when she sees it and it's mid-sex and she's like, what the hell? Does the person then exit the boyfriend?
They're just sitting there, and the boyfriend wasn't even apologetic or horrified. And he goes, what? And she goes, I cannot believe you. I can't believe you're having sex with an Asian transgender on my American Express card. You know what his response was? He goes, you were sleeping. You were sleeping.
And then does she look back and be like, well, obviously he liked this kind of sex and he liked this kind of type of person. What the hell was he doing with me?
She was completely blindsided. She thought he was a flaming heterosexual. She had no idea.
And then what? How did they end it? Was she just like, get out
she
tomorrow?
Was like, get out of my effing house, and they've never spoken since.
Did they ever have any mutual? I always think, what do you tell your mutual friends when you've been together that long?
I don't know what she
happened?
told everyone else.
Yeah,
she
like
told
what
me.
happened? Like, oh, okay, well, do we make an agreement? Do we keep a secret like that? Maybe you don't want it out there. I don't know.
I don't know.
What do you do when it's something that like surprising? Yeah,
it's out there. So I posted it. I made a TikTok about
yeah.
So the next day, a girl I hadn't heard from in 10 years calls me and she goes, that's nothing. That is nothing. My story is 1,000 times worse than that one. I was like, what's your story? So this was a beautiful girl. She looked like Cindy Crawford, like just a beautiful brunette. And she couldn't cut it in modeling and acting. She just couldn't cut it and left and moved to Arizona, America's cat box. And sorry, Arizonans. I have family there.
My son goes to school there.
Okay.
Love it.
So she moves to Arizona, and then she meets a handsome guy who's successful. He had tribal tattoos, so that was like, I was just like, I don't know, he's got tribal tattoos. And she was just like, don't be a hater.
It's Arizona.
I know, it's Arizona. It's like
Yeah.
they drive yellow Hummers there and stuff. So she meets this guy, falls in love with him, gets married. They're living in a big house with a pool
In
and a
Arizona.
good life in Arizona, and very happy. Now, she had told me way back when I met her, because I'm adopted, she had a lot of really unresolved feelings about she had gotten pregnant at 15 or 16 and had no ability to raise a child, and she gave this child up for adoption. So now that she had a stable home life, she wanted to reach out and see if she could connect with her daughter that she gave birth to. And she does, who turns out to also live in Arizona. And the daughter is like a 22-year-old spitting image of this girl when she was young, gorgeous, perfect. And they get together and they start building a relationship. Well, a few months in, her husband and the daughter start hooking up, and they have run off together, and they are engaged, and they are doing the closest thing you can do to pornography on Instagram that they're posting. They're just like tongues out, tonguing each other, and like groping and just like filthy, nasty pictures. And she's right. There's nothing worse I can think of than this. Like, my heart breaks for her.
The only thing I could think of is worse would be if it was a daughter you raised.
Yeah, fair.
But it is awful and heartbreaking because now she doesn't have the daughter that she reconnected with, or the husband, or the yellow Hummer.
And people's responses to it were weird. Like, some of the people on
When you told the story?
TikTok,
Yeah, what were they saying?
We're just like, oh, well, she's like, well, the bitch deserves it for abandoning her kid. And I'm like, listen,
My
I'm
God.
an adoptee. Adoption is not abandonment. Leaving someone on a street corner is abandonment. She tried to give this child a better life, and she was just like, well, she nailed it. She got what she deserves. And a lot of people were on our side.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you kind of wonder. There must have been some unresolved something with the daughter that she gave up, and not out of her fault, but whatever. Maybe she didn't
have a good childhood.
Yeah, maybe
herself.
she didn't have a good childhood with the adoptive parents.
Probably.
Did you ever find your birth parents?
I did, yeah.
How did that go?
Oh my God, this is bananas. So when I was adopted, they were very secret, very closed
Right.
adoptions. And then at a certain point in like the late 80s, early 90s, they opened up the adoptions. So I was in Cancun, Mexico, and my suitcase got stolen. And in my suitcase was my passport and my original birth certificate. So I had nothing. And back then you could go to Mexico or Canada with a driver's license. So it wasn't a big deal. So I was able to get home. So I had to get a new birth certificate issued to me. So I had to call the Department of Vital Statistics, and they said, oh, you were in a closed adoption. You have to apply for this thing called a gold certificate. So I applied for this gold certificate, and they reissue me a birth certificate. Now, the birth certificate had one more line of information than my old censored one, and it was the name of a law firm. And I'm like, there's no way this law firm is going to still be around from that long ago, but I'll give it a try. So I'm at my office in Chicago. This was just before I moved here. And I call, and this guy answers the phone. He says, hello? And I said, hi, I think I dialed the wrong number. I was trying to reach a law firm. He goes, this is a law firm. My secretary went home for the day because it was like 6 p.m. And I go, this is going to sound weird, but I was adopted from your agency back in the 60s. And he goes, oh my God, are you Judge Garber's nephew? And I go, yes. How did you know that? He goes, I went to law school with him at John Marshall, and yours is the only like adoption case we've ever done. We were law students together, and this is my dad's law firm. And I'm like, this is bananas. So he goes, anyway, here's the adoption agency. Reach out. He goes, you probably won't have any luck, but give it a go. So I meet this really interesting woman whose entire job is putting parents and adoptees back together. And she said, don't get your hopes up. The trail is usually cold. The only way I will be able to find either of your birth parents is if they consented to it. And she goes, give me a few weeks. I'm going to have to go through microfiche. And, it's basically our warehouse looks like the last scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So like 3 weeks, a month go by. And she goes, this is bananas. She goes, I have all these letters to you, like birthday cards and Hanukkah cards and a bar mitzvah card. And she was just like, happy 13th birthday. This is where I'm living now. Should you ever reach out? Happy 18th birthday, happy 16th birthday. And she'd written me all these cards. And she said, yeah. So she said that if you can give her your phone number, she'll call you. And I'm like, I'm not giving her my phone number. Give me her phone number. And she goes, she doesn't want to give you her phone number either. I go, well, and I guess it's a Mexican standoff. So we went back and forth for a little bit, and we negotiated that I would call from my office and that she would go to the adoption agency and we would chat about it there. So we talked on the phone, and she seemed out there. And I was literally moving to LA that week.
Now, did you tell your parents that raised you that you were seeing your birth mom?
No, because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. It was something, I was like, I'm going through this. It's stressful enough.
Right.
But I did tell my sister, who's like Stalin with too much Botox, and she leaked it immediately, and they found out.
Was she adopted as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So
anyway,
continue.
so I moved to LA, and then we were in touch. We talked on the phone a few times. And then I decided I was ready and I was going to come meet her. So it's a freezing, snowing, cold night. And I fly back to LA and I wanted to look good for her. And I put like a suit, a tie on, and a long.
So you're meeting her in Chicago or
I'm
in
meeting
LA?
her. No, she lives in Chicago. So I flew home to meet her. And I'm driving in this snowstorm to this terrible neighborhood. And I was working for Nicolas Cage at the time. And Nick calls me and he's like, what's going on? And you're never short. When you work for a guy like that, you're never short with them. And I'm like, Nick, is it an emergency? Because I'm going through something really heavy. And there was just silence on the other end of the phone. And I'm like, oh, I totally screwed up. And I go, I'm sorry, Nick, what do you need? And he goes, what's going on? Maybe I can help you. And I said, I'm meeting the woman who gave birth to me for the first time, and I think I'm having a panic attack. I've never had a panic attack. I think I'm having a panic attack, Nick. And he goes, I can help you with this. I have a gift for dealing with stressful situations. And I'm like, you're an effing actor. How are you going to help me? And I go, all right, Nick, I'm all ears. Let's hear it. And he goes, I want you to picture yourself sitting in a red velvet theater seat in a movie theater, watching a black comedy unfold before your eyes. I don't want you to dissociate, but I want you to be an observer. Just watch it unfold. And it's going to be dark and fucked up and funny. Just watch it. And I go, Nick Cage, you're a different breed of cat, but you're
just watch your story.
I go, you're an effing genius. I'm totally calm right now. I said, I'm going in. And he goes, all right, call me and let me know how it goes. And I said, I probably won't, but thank you very much for this. And I went and I met her. And I took her out to dinner, and she told me all about my birth father, and she'd met this guy. She didn't know he was married. He got her pregnant. Turns out he had a couple of kids and one on the way. And so that happened. So that was like kind of part one of that. But I was always like, this crazy redheaded lady can't be all I am. I know I'm redheaded. I know I'm crazy, but this can't be all there is. I have to find my father. And now I know his name. So every few years, I tried hiring different private investigators to try to find him, and I always came up empty-handed. It was just like another $1,500, another $2,000 down the drain, and I could not find him. And then one day, I get a call from my friend Becca, and she said, "Did you see Page 6 this morning?" I said, "You know me. I don't read celebrity trash. I don't care." And she goes, "You should look at it today. You're in it." And I go, "Why would I be in Page 6?" She goes, "Just go look at it." So I go look at it, and it says Scott Nathan sues Lindsay Lohan for not being paid on a job, which happened. And then the next column over, it said billionaire so-and-so gets sued for sexual harassment by this company CEO and this lady's name. And I'm like, oh, no way. I know both of them. I know the billionaire and I know the woman. So seconds later, I get a Facebook request from this woman. Carissa Schumacher is her name. And Carissa Schumacher is like a geneticist, PhD, went to Brown University, a science girl, beautiful blonde girl, but a science girl. And I said, how did your case end up resolving? And she said, all I'm legally allowed to say is it was resolved amicably and I'm pleased with the decision. I said, no way, that's all I'm legally allowed to say.
With your Lindsay Lohan thing.
With my Lindsay Lohan thing, and I did get paid.
Yes.
Thanks, Linz.
I remember that.
It wasn't Lindsay's fault. It was her partner's fault.
I remember this, yeah.
So So that all worked out. So I said, what are you doing now? Are you working for another genetics company? She's like, no, I gave up science. And I'm like, you're a PhD. What do you mean you gave up science? She goes, I'm a mirror medium and a psychic now. And I believe in psychics and mediums, but that's a big leap to go from an Ivy League doctorate to being a psychic. So she goes, I have an idea. And I'm like, she's going to ask me for money. I can feel it. She goes, I'm not going to ask you for money.
Oh, she is psychic. Yeah.
So she goes, I'll make you a deal. Let me do a reading for you. And my readings are very expensive. And I said, what's the deal? She goes, let me do a reading for you. And if you love it, and I mean really love it, shoot my portrait sometime. And if you think it was bullshit, you don't owe me anything. I was like, oh, I'll do that. She goes, all right, call me Thursday afternoon. So I said, what? So you can LexisNexis me and Google me? Let's do it right now. And she goes, listen, motherfucker, I will tell you things that you cannot find on LexisNexis or Google. So I said, all right. So I knew her from like clubs and being with that billionaire guy. She didn't know anything about me. She didn't know I was adopted. And then none of that is out there. I mean, it's now because. So we get on the phone and she said, you're trying to find your birth father. And I go, yeah. She goes, I was channeling your energy and he came to me. She goes, he has a New York accent. I said, I know, he's from Brooklyn. And she goes, he has a very dirty mouth. And I said, well, that makes sense. And she goes, do you want me to paraphrase what he's saying to you? Or do you want me to tell you exactly?
So is he dead or alive?
He was dead for 2 years.
Oh.
So she says, do you want me to I said, paraphrase nothing. Tell me exactly what he wants to say to me.
Yeah.
And he goes, kid, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I couldn't keep my dick in my pants. I fucked everything that moved. I want you to go meet your sisters. And I'm like, I have sisters? So he goes, yeah. I go, ask him how to find my sisters. I know this sounds insane, but it's true. So he goes, I want you to call my fourth wife. This is her name. She lives on Spruce Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I call back the last detective from a few days earlier. And he's like, listen, I'm sorry I'm taking your money, but you gave me bad info. That guy does not exist. I said, you're doing one more search for me. I'm not paying you any more money. He goes, what is it? And I said, look for this lady's name on Spruce Street in Philadelphia. The guy calls me back 2 minutes later. He goes, this is unbelievable. I found him, but that's not his name. He had a different name. It was an anglicized version because Jews changed their names back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
So he goes, anyway, here's her phone number. So I'm like, I better keep going or I'm going to chicken out. So I call his fourth wife. And I said, hi, I'm looking for, and I say his name because I didn't even know if any of this was real.
Right.
And she says, what are you, a bill collector? I said, I am not a bill collector. She goes, you better tell me who this is or I'm hanging up. And I said, I don't even know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it. I'm his son. And she goes, oh, Jesus Christ, another one? And I go, what do you mean another one? She goes, the girls just met for the first time at his funeral, right? I said, I know nothing. Tell me everything. So she tells me this crazy story about they met at his funeral. And I said, I would love to get in touch with these women. Can you put me in touch with them? And she goes, no. I said, did you say no? Why no? And she goes, they've been through enough. They don't need to meet you. And I said, yeah, but this is my life. And she says, I don't give a shit. So I know like old Jewish ladies, they do like to dish. They sometimes just need a little foreplay. And I said, well, just tell me what you're comfortable with. She goes, don't try to trick me. I said, I'm not going to try to trick you. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm skinny. I have long curly red hair and blue-green eyes and pale skin. Do they look like me? She goes, no. I said, I'm an artist. Are either of them creative? She goes, not really. And I said, well, just tell me what you're comfortable telling me. So she goes, well, one of them, and she tells me her name. She goes, she's a realtor in Los Angeles. She grew up at Melrose and La Brea. Do you know where that is? And I said, yeah, I do. And she goes, and the other one, she lives in Long Island and she has hair salons and spas in Long Island and Manhattan. And I'm like quietly typing and I find the realtor 2 seconds flat. And then I'm quietly typing in Facebook and I find the New York one in 2 seconds flat. Now it gets really crazy. So I go, thank you so much. And she goes, I'll send you some pictures. So the first picture she sends is like him in the backyard at the Playboy Mansion with Peter Lawford. And he's like a short, blonde, fat Jew, but with my exact face. And I was like, this is unbelievable. And it's like the Playboy Mansion. So I'm like, I see where that comes from.
Oh my gosh.
So I know this sounds completely bananas. So I'm like, it's getting late in New York. I'm going to call the New York one first. So I call the New York one. I said, I write her on Facebook and she's like, this is unbelievable. He told us about you on his deathbed. He didn't know what your name was. He didn't know how to reach you. I'm going to be in LA on Thursday. And I know there's something about Thursdays. Everything's a Thursday in this story. She goes, do you want to have dinner? I said, I would love to have dinner with you. Where are you staying? And she said, Santa Monica. And I said, okay, what hotel? I'll pick you up. She goes, I'm not staying at a hotel. I'm staying at my childhood best friend's house. I said, cool, give me the address. She gives me the address. And I go, I know that address. Who's your childhood best friend? She goes, you don't know her. I said, she goes, she's much older than you. I said, is her name Joyce? She goes, yeah, how the hell do you know Joyce? I said, she's my ex-girlfriend's stepmother. She goes, that's impossible. She only has one stepdaughter and she's like half your age. And I'm like, and she goes, oh my God, you really are your father's son, aren't you? And
my God.
And I go, I might be. So then I call my ex and I go, hey, do you know Joyce? And she goes, yeah, of course I know her. She's my mother's best friend. She was in the room when I was born. And I go, buckle up, sis. That is my flesh and blood half sister. And she goes, I can kind of see that in the eyes. And I'm like, did you hear what I just said to you? She is my sister. She goes, yeah, that is crazy. So I end up picking her up there and seeing my ex and my ex's parents and having a little visit with them. And then I take her to Shay J for dinner on Ocean Avenue in Santa Monica. And we talked for 3 hours and it was amazing. And she's really cool. And she has a daughter that looks like me crossed with a Kardashian. It's like my face, but with like the flat iron, like with the, the contours and the black hair. And she's really sweet. And then the next night was Friday night. So we were going to meet the other one. She's like, I'm warning you about this LA one. And I'm like, what about her? She's like, she's very pious. She's very Orthodox Jewish and she's very uptight. So I'm like, I can handle dinner with anybody. It'll be fine.
Because they were not raised together either.
Not at all. So we get to this house in Cheviot Hills over by Fox Studios. It's a nice, 4-bedroom house. And I meet her husband, who's a nice guy, but he's got the beard and the payas and the black suit, and they're like Orthodox Jews.
Right.
And like I was bar mitzvahed, but we were like bacon eating Jews. We were in it for the corned beef sandwiches and the Woody Allen movies. Like we're never that observant. So, so we walk in and I walk in and she like comes kind of from a place of aggression from the moment I walk in and she goes, Scott, where's all your professional photography equipment? And I go, I didn't realize, wise ass. So I go, I didn't realize I was working tonight. And she says, well, one would think if you're meeting your sisters, you'd want to take pictures. And I literally just went like this.
With your phone?
Yeah. And she goes, well, if that's good enough for you. I go, it's totally good enough for me. So now I feel like uncomfortable. And she's got 2 little kids and they've got like the no makeup and the glasses and the Orthodox dresses. And I kind of feel bad for them. And so I'm not really much of a drinker, but there's that crappy Concord grape Manischewitz wine being passed around. I'm like, I better have a couple of these and take the edge off. Now I have to pee. So I'm like, restroom? And she goes, yeah, down there at the end of the hall. So I go down to the end of the hall and I walk in and I turn the light on and I'm peeing and I hear blood-curdling screams coming from the other room. And all I could think of is I got my privates in my hand and I'm peeing and I'm like thinking, how rude. I can't believe she's yelling at her kids or her husband when there's company over. How rude. And I zip up my pants and I wash my hands and I go back to the table and she's just giving me a death stare and she's like, and I go, problem? She goes, why'd you turn the fucking lights on? And I go, oh, right, it's Shabbat. Sorry about that. And she goes, I just don't know how you could be so fucking stupid. And I said, you listen to me. I'm a guest in your house. You can't talk to me like that. She goes, I just don't understand. You're Jewish. How could you be this dumb? And I'm like, I said, I'm Jewish. I eat oysters. I eat lobsters. I hunt and eat wild pigs. I'm not like you. So we're not off to a great start. So I said, were you raised Orthodox? And she said, no. And I said, how did you get here? And she said, I just wanted to meet a man who was nothing like our piece of shit father. And I go, you're 56 years old. Are you still on that? You're still mad about that? She goes, yeah, I'm still mad about it. I said, let it go. Let it go. It's over. The guy's dead. Let it go. She goes, don't you tell me what to let it go. So anyway, I was just like, I don't think this is going to be a fit long term. So like 10 days later, she sends me a message on Facebook and she says, I find your sense of humor deeply, deeply offensive. Would you mind if I unfriended you? And I said, not at all.
Oh my God.
And that was
So do you keep in touch with the Florida one?
New York one.
New York one.
Yeah, I do.
Awesome.
I do. I'll always see them when I'm in New York. And my little niece, we're in touch.
But do you keep in touch with the mom?
Yeah, the mom and her husband.
Your mom?
Oh, my mom, no.
That was just the one meeting.
No,
and
that was
Yeah, that's what I hear.
I had my closure.
It's like I hear that sometimes it doesn't continue and sometimes it does with siblings and, it's very interesting. Well, let's get into your book one more time.
Thank you.
I just want to say you have some really great quotes from some people that you've worked with that are friends. Zoe Deschanel writes, Scott Nathan's life reads like an East of Doheny Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love that. I'm not sure how he made so many bad decisions, but I'm glad he did so we can all be entertained.
Thanks, Zoe.
Dita Von Teese said, Scott Nathan has been regaling me with his unspeakably filthy raucous Raucous stories for decades now. I always wonder how he gets himself in these predicaments. But the truth is, he's a natural-born misfits magnet. I mean, when we talked about it, I didn't know the adoption thing. That just came up.
Yeah.
I've known Scott Nathan for years. Must say he has an almost preternatural. God, these words are huge. Gift for making bad decisions. Dr. Drew Pinsky, our friend. Jack Osborne. I thought there was no way this redhead could get into so much mischief and debauchery. But lo and behold, it's all true. I often refer to Scott as a more charismatic, slightly more articulate Forrest Gump. Totally. I said that.
Yeah.
I said that. Like you're just in all these places. So the book is The Big Book of Bad Decisions. And Scott Nathan is it's Scott Nathan Photography on Instagram.
Scott Nathan Photo on Instagram and TikTok is Scott Nathan Photo. Also on Facebook. Twitter is Scott Nathan. And then the website is at baddecisionsbook.com, and you can zoom in and hit that QR code.
Zoom in, and we'll have this all too in the notes.
Thank you.
Under this, and thank you so much for coming.
It's always a
fun.
blast.
It's fun to talk to you. We were talking about what we were going to talk about yesterday, and I'm like, I think we got to hang up because I don't want to I want it to be fresh. And we ended up not even talking about half the stuff we plan on talking about.
You and I are never at a shortage for convo.
So you'll have to come back, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.